So, good day, everyone. I'm CJ Pontonela Sotomil, and me and my groupmate Jamaica Orongan will tackle about the Chapter 16 American Colonial Rule, Policy, and Governance in 1899 until 1907. So, when we say about American colonial, it is a policy maker and authorities realized that winning the hearts and minds of reconquered people was more important. So, let's jump up to the military rule. So after Manila fell into the hand of the American, the count was administered by the President of the United States through military. So President McKinley ordered the military commander, General Winsley Merritt, to establish a military government in the Philippines. So he will be the first military governor, but in August 1898, he was ordered to go in Paris. So, ang merit napunta ni General Elwis Otis as a military governor. So, when we say about military governor, it, it, it means he is the representative of the president in the Philippines. So, as of 19,000, the position of General Elwis Otis was succeeded by General Arthur MacArthur until May 1901. So next, let's jump up to the American policy in the Philippines. So in 1898, American policy regarding the Philippines was already cleared because McKinley wanted the entire Philippines for the United States. So McKinley created the first commission. So he created the two commission, which is the Sherman Commission and the Thap Commission. So let's tackle first the Sherman Commission. So it was Sherman Commission. It was named after its chairman, Dr. Jacob Good Sherman, the president of the Cornell University in New York. New York. The instruction to guide by the commission arrived in Manila in March 1899. So the guide state of this commission is first, the authority of the United States should be extended all over the Philippines in peaceful manner. And second, to secure with the least possible delay the benefits of wise and generous protection of life and property. And last is to respect the custom and tradition of the Filipinos. So next is the top commission. So it was this commission was instructed by McKinley in 19,000. It was introduced in the Philippines the free primary education. That the English language should be used as the medium. So mao nang natay English subject karon kay gikan na sa Amerika. So kabantay ba mo nga we Filipino maski dili ta kabalo English, but we are capable of understanding English language because of we are studying English language. So all in all, American policy with regard to the Philippines was based on President McKinley's instruction. It described as an organizing commission. American came to the Philippines not as conquerors but as a friend whose aim to work for benefits and welfare of the Filipino people. So that would be all for the American policy in the Philippines. So next topic will be tackled by Miss Jamaica Orongan.
So now let's go on to the civil government. So, unlike the fact-finding Sherman Commission, the Taft Commission can be described as an organizing commission, and it also never left the Philippines but stayed on to organize the civil government. So the Spooner Amendment, Senator John Spooner of Wisconsin inserted an amendment in the Army Appropriations Act that was passed by the Congress of the United States in March 1901, which authorized the President of the United States to establish a civil government in the Philippines. So this became the basis of the civil government in the Philippines. So for the establishment of the civil government in July 1901, The civil government was inaugurated with William Howard Taft as the very first civil governor. So, being the chairman of the Philippine Commission, the first lawmaking body of the Philippines under the Americans, Governor Taft or William Howard Taft exercised legislative powers. So now let's go on to the resistance to Taft's policy. So Taft realized the extent of his problems, that the consequences of the resistance were, first, the peace and order situation of the country. Second, not all the provinces of the Philippines were pacified. Third, guerrilla fighting continued and reached its peak in 1899 to 1900s. Fourth, patriots harassing the Americans in Luzon and Visayas. The next is newly elected officials aiding the guerrillas with food supplies and information that they need. Then famine, so agriculture was neglected during this time, and 90% of their what do you call this one, of their animal died. So these are the carabaos, the very source of living. Next is the scarce food supply caused by hunger and malnutrition. Then the sanitary conditions caused diseases in the reconcentration camps. And last is not enough money to reconstruct and rehabilitate the devastated country. So William Howard Taft, studied these problems and tried to minimize their effect, but without success. So this resulted to Taft's passage of repressive laws like first is the Reconcentration Act of 1903. So this Reconcentration Act of 1903 repressive law provided for the zoning of the inhabitants of a town known to have thieves and outlaws. So in December 20, 1900s, martial law was declared to interrupt and, if possible, completely destroy the system by which supplies and information are sent to insurrectos from occupied towns. So next is the sedition law. So this sedition law was passed in 1901. So this provided that any Filipino advocating independence or separation from the United States will be severely punished by death or imprisonment. So next is the Brigandage Act. So this was passed in 1902. This provided severe penalty to those found in the company or were members of armed groups who were stealing carabaos. So, because of that, guerrillas were forced to surrender soon after, and the peace and order improved. So, Governor Taft is remembered for his principle, the Philippines for the Filipinos. So, on February 1903, in Iloilo City, he announced that American and foreigners should leave the Philippines at once if they found fault with the way of the government was being run. So now let's go on to the banishment of the patriots. So as there were many wealthy and educated Filipinos like Buencamino and Arellano who were already collaborating with the enemy, there were also patriots who refused to collaborate with the enemy. So these people rather suffered than prosperous under the colonizers. So the wealthy educated Filipinos are Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera, next is Benito Legarde, then Felipe Buencamino, and lastly is Cayetano Arellano. So there are also exiled patriots to Guam. First is Mabini. So Apolinario Mabini, he is the most opposing of all and was exiled to Guam. Then next is Artemio Ricarte, then Maximo Hizon, Julia Herona, Pablo Campo, and lastly is Melchora Aquino. So now let's go on to the Philippine Bill of 1902, which will be reported by Mr. C.J. Sotomil. C.J.
2. The U.S. Congress passed a law known as the Copper Law or the Philippine Act of 1902, which provide a Bill of Rights which guarantee Filipinos the right of free speech, free press, and freedom. So next page, please. So next is the census of 1903. So the Governor Taft recommended the President Theodore Roosevelt to proclaim peace and order in the Philippines officially. So in March 2, 1903, it was declared as census. It was the first scientific census in the Philippines on that day. Population in the Philippines showed 7,635,426. So guys, we're all familiar sa census because kanang every year na ay mo ani nga taga munisipyo sa ato ang balay and mag-interview kung pila ta ka pila ta ka membro sa ato ang balay, di ba naay mo form sa atong una-una kung kinsay founder ani. So now kabalo na ta nga census was founded by Americans. So next, so let's jump up to the political parties. So these political parties was founded by Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera. So Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera was allowed to form the first officially recognized political parties in the Philippines. So he founded the following parties: the Federal Party. So first, the Federal Party, Nacionalista Party in 1901, and the Liberal and Democrata Party in 1902. So first, let's talk about the Federal Party. So it was the first political party in the Philippines founded by Trinidad. It favored the American rule and its platform about the annexation of the Philippines to US. So, annexation, kung ni-come up sa inyong una kung unsa ni nga word, so it means territory. So later on, they changed it into the Progresista Party. So second party is the Nacionalista Party in 1901. The first Nacionalista Party were founded by the Filipinos who opposed the federal party's platform and cam- campaigned for the immediate independence party. So as a Filipino, mo against good ko, dili lang ako pati kamo kung makasabot mo sa mga platforms nila. Mo against jud ta sa federal party kay sila nagali ang naa sa teritoryo nato, sila pa ang maghimo og party nga in favor ra pud nila. So pasalamat jud ta sa Nationalista Party, which is independence, freedom from the control or influence by American. So next, I know all of us were familiar ani nga party, which is the Liberal Party and Democrata Party in 1902. So kani siya mapanimatian man ni nato sa mga balita when it comes politics, na ni siya. So unsa man jud ni siya. So Liberal Party, these two Liberal and Democrata Party, these two parties formed by Filipino who favored in step by step grant of independence. So it was led by a young lawyer, Sergio Osmeña of Cebu, and Manuel El Quezon of the Yabas. So next page, please. So the election of 1907. So in accordance with the Copper Act, the Filipinos could elect delegates to assembly. So all of us Filipinos have the right nga makavote kung insay deserving ana nga position. But it is kuan lang para ra jud na nato, para nato as an individual, dili nato na ipagkalat, dili nato i-public nga ni siya atong gibutuhan because it's strictly nga gibawal jud na siya. Pero mabantayan man nato nga karon sa atong panahon nga mo jud ni mo ni kadaganan sa Pilipino nga mag tabi-tabi, magchismis kung kinsay kuan. But no, let's not let's not tolerate that kind of attitude nga atong siwalat kung kinsay atong gibutuhan because it's private and para lang na nato kung kinsay atong gibutuhan nga deserving ana nga position. para lang pod nga ma-aware pod mo kung unsay right way nga buhaton. So in the election of July 30, 1907, the votes of Nacionalista won the overwhelming 59 seats, and Progresta won 16 seats, Independents won 5 seats. So all in all, Nacionalista won the election to have the 59 seats. So wait, next. So this will be report tackled by Miss Jamaica Arongan.
So now let's go on to the first Philippines Assembly. So the first Philippines Assembly in October 1907, William H. Taft, then the Secretary of War, was the guest speaker. So, excuse me. This became the lower house of the legislative body of the country, and the Philippines Commission being the upper house. So, it was inaugurated in the Old Manila Grand Opera House at Rizal Avenue on October 16, 1907. Then Sergio Osmeña was only 29 when he was elected by the Assembly to be the Speaker. Then Manuel Alcazon was elected as Majority Floor Leader and Vicente Singson as the Minority Floor Leader. So the delegates to the Assembly were mostly young men who adopted the roles of the American Congress to guide them in their deliberation. So let's go on to the Work Assembly. So the following goals are cooperating with the United States on the basis of mutual respect, making the Assembly an instrument in achieving the autonomy of the Philippines, then passing of laws intended to hasten the economic, social, and political government, and lastly is substituting the oppressive policy of the past with the progressive policies. So let's go on to the resident commissioners. So the two elected resident commissioners are Pablo Ocampo. So he was from 1907 to 1909. Then next is Benito Legarde from 1907 to 1912. So resident commissioners work for laws that were beneficial for the Philippines, so they also vote for the rejection of bills presented to Congress which was detrimental to the Filipino. So the public school system in 1901, the Department of Public Instruction was established. So American system of education is better because it is democratic, unlike the Spain's education policy which was good in paper but selective in practice. So English is the compulsory language that was used so as the medium of instruction, which resulted to the increase of literacy to the Philippines because they are Americans, so they need to speak in English. Then now let's go on to the Pensionado program. So this was inaugurated in 1903. So this program was sent Filipino students to the United States for higher education as government scholars. So until now ga-exist yapon na uban ng mga exchange students or kanang mga ilang ginasuportaran sa gawas. So after 4 years in college, they came back to our country as teachers, lawyers, engineers, and mostly civil servants in the bureaucracy. So pensionados were most qualified persons to hold government positions, including from the upper class families and some talented students from the lower class families. So some examples ani nga mga scholars or sila George Jose Abad Santos, mga utukang mga katawo, then Francisco Benitez, si Doktora Honoria Sison, and si Francisco Delgado. So now let's go on to the position of women. So few women were highly educated during that time because open ang mga Americans unlike sa mga Spanish. So, under the Americans, women are allowed to enroll in colleges. So, unlike sa mga Spanish nga mura ganig like mas taas ang lalaki na ginatawag nga patriarchal masakay something like patriarchal chuchu then enroll in colleges and universities established by them, so women would also be granted the right to vote and run for the public office by 1935. So many women become teachers, na teachers, ng lawyers, pharmacists, dentists, and physicians and scientists because dili sila kuan ani during nga time, dili sila sobra kahigpit ani nga balaod kay they see women as just like murag the same nga og unsay right sa mga lalaki dili kay ingon nga naay kuan gani kanang gender inequality because they see women as ka-level lang nila. So mura to siya. That would be all. Thank you very much for listening and I hope that nakakuha mo og nakakuha mo og knowledge ato among gi-discuss. That would be all. Thank you.